Wine Enthusiast Magazine, this is the Wine Enthusiast Podcast. I'm Digital Content Director Marina Vitage. Coming up, volcanic wines. Just 1% of the world's surface is covered in volcanic soil, but more and more vineyards are cropping up on this ash-enriched earth. We'll meet the man who's heating up the volcanic wine movement with an exciting annual event.
There's something there. Why don't we turn this into something a little bit bigger? Let's make it a conference. Let's turn it into a movement.
We'll find out why it isn't just volcanic wine soil that's complex.
Everything about wine, it's not just the drink that you have in the glass. It's the whole story about it. It's the people, it's the culture, it's the place.
And we'll hear from some of the most celebrated producers in this burgeoning wine movement.
When I usually go to tastings and talk about Santorini, I feel very unique talking about the volcanic island. But here today, we're in a room where every wine is from a volcanic region.
It's coming up on the Wine Enthusiast Podcast. Blue Apron, the meal kit masters, now have an incredible wine club too. A recent reviewer wrote, Blue Apron's concept is a win-win. New producers, solid wines, it's tough to beat. It's true. Only Blue Apron partners with the world's best winemakers, including Uvaggio, a regular enthusiast editor's choice pick. Get $25 off your first shipment of 6 wines at blueapron.com/corkscrew. We'll start today's show in New York City.
Thanks so much for coming. I know New York is an amazing city, but there are always about 300 tastings going on, and we're delighted that you decided to come here and spend some time with us. I think it's going to be a pretty fantastic day celebrating the superlative things that happen around volcanoes, and in particular the grapes that grow on and the wines that are made from them. So let me just give you
This is Master Sommelier John Szabo. It's the end of March 2018, and he's introducing an exciting inaugural event in the world of wine, the first annual Volcanic Wines International Conference. Szabo wrote the book Volcanic Wines. He also founded the group Volcanic Wines International. When you hear the term volcanic wines, you might be asking yourself the same curious question a passerby posed the first morning at the conference.
volcanic wine, what the hell is that?
And Szabo's answer to that question may surprise you.
There's no such thing as volcanic wine. Volcanic wine doesn't exist, not in the singular. It is a world of infinite nuance, radiant rainbow of colors of the volcanic wine world. So it's not volcanic wine in the singular, it's volcanic wines in the plural.
Intrigued? Listen on and you'll hear more about the special world of wines that John Szabo and others hope will blow your mind. Our lifestyle and entertaining editor, Mike DeSimone, attended the Volcanic Wines International Conference. During the grand tasting, when more than 50 volcanic wineries offered sips of their wares, Mike spoke with the movers and shakers in the volcanic wine world. He began by talking with John Szabo himself, who described how he decided to start shedding light on these distinctively nuanced wines.
I was writing an article about a decade or so ago and trying to come up with some clever angles and started to think about some interesting wines, places I'd been to recently. For example, Santorini in Greece, northern shores of Lake Balaton in Hungary, Mount Etna. I just made a recent trip there, was captivated by many of these wines. And suddenly dawned on me that the only thing linking them all together was the fact that they were grown on volcanic soil. So my tongue-in-cheek article turned out to be my favorite wine grows on a volcano, which my editor at the time thought, well, that's an interesting hook. That's a really different take on it. Can you expand that into a full-length piece? And as I was doing that, researching, of course, discovered that there's this incredible world of wines grown on volcanic soils literally around the world, and realized that there was something to explore further and perhaps even turn into a book. And really out of that, through my friendships with many people around the volcanic wine world, and in particular Sofia Perpera and George Athanas, who still run Wines of Greece and Wines of Santorini, they said, well, there's something there. Why don't we turn this into something a little bit bigger? let's make it a conference, let's turn it into a movement, was the word they used. And it grew from there. That was about a year and a half or so ago that we started working on this project.
So who's here today? Who's behind the tables pouring? What regions do we have? How many wineries and how many wines are with us?
We have, if I'm not mistaken, 6 different countries represented, 16 different regions, about 51 wineries and over 150 wines. So starting from, let's say, in the U.S. and moving out, we've got wines from Northern California, Napa and Sonoma and Lake County. We have a winery from Chile, which is an amazingly volcanic country, waiting to be discovered a little bit more. Over in the Mid-Atlantic, we have wines from the Azores, an archipelago that belongs to Portugal. And then moving into Europe, lots to choose from there. Many producers from Italy, from Soave down through Campania, Taurasi, Vesuvius area, Basilicata, Montevuture. We have wines from Etna, of course, sort of poster child for volcanic wines these days. We have wines from Santorini, of course. We also have wines from Hungary, which many people don't associate readily with a volcanic terroir, but I can assure you that it's an amazingly volcanic place, particularly in the northern part of the country.
Is there some taste or quality that translates into the glass?
I would say, in my experience, tasting many wines from around the world, the one thing that they tend to have in common is that they fall on the more savory side of the spectrum, as opposed to fruity wines. Many wines are fruity. Volcanic wines tend to be, by and large, very savory, very earthy, very stony, lots of herbal scents, lots of potpourri, this wonderful array of unusual flavors. And they're sometimes a little bit shocking at first. If you were tasting wine for the first time, I probably wouldn't give you a glass of the most volcanic expression I could find, because they're often not soft, they're not cuddly, they're not warm, you don't cozy up to them. They often have these little sharp edges, a little bit of saltiness, a little briny character. But once you fall in love with that world, then you've got an amazing world to discover. I would encourage people to go out, to inquire about, to ask about, taste as broadly as possible. I'd recommend that for anyone, just to get a sense of the amazing diversity that there is in the world of wine. For someone to go and select the same wine, the same brand, taste it day after day, for me is a bit saddening. I would love to share the fact that this is a great and diverse world.
You're obviously very passionate about wine in general and the volcanic wine, so thank you very much for sitting down and talking with us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, absolutely. Thanks so much.
You can see photos of John speaking at the conference and check out his book, Volcanic Wines, by visiting our website, winemag.com/podcast. Sofia Purpura is no stranger to volcanic wines. The trained chemist and enologist directs the Greek Wine Bureau in North America and coordinates the promotional campaign for wines from Santorini. When Purpura spoke with Mike DeSimone during the grand tasting, she shared her perspective on how the volcanic wine movement got started.
So when John had his book, and we've been friends with John for several years, I told him, let's do something with volcanic wines from around the world, because this would also benefit Santorini a lot. I mean, it would be like some of the best wines that would come together, and we would push the whole category ahead, and they have so many common characteristics. So it was, John got very excited about it, and then also Gino from Colangelo, and we started this movement since this fall, actually. The idea came this fall.
What have you tasted here today, or what other volcanic wines have you tried that surprised or delighted your palate?
I tasted some really exciting wines from Azores, from Portugal, and from Italy. I tasted several from Soave, but there's a lot more that I will taste.
What would you say are the similarities or differences about those wines as compared to the Santorini wines that you're familiar with?
Well, Santorini wines are not very aromatic. They are known for their great structure, great acidity. They're like a punch in the mouth. They are strong wines. I tried now some very nice wines from Soave that are much more, the whites, that were much more aromatic. They're elegant wines. They're not so acidic, but they're completely different. But yet they have an earthiness, and they're also food wines. Now, I tried some wines from Azores that they were so elegant and like very delicate. I wouldn't say natural because I don't like the term, but they seemed that they were wines without much interference.
On your like dream list as this volcanic wine movement grows, who else would you like to see here next year?
Oh, we'd like to get, even from the regions that we are now, to get more wineries. We'd like to get wines from Canary Islands. I mean, more from Italy, and we don't have any wines from Germany. We would like to get some wines from there.
So the other thing I wanted to know is how do we get people? How do we tell people, besides saying this grows in volcanic soil, what do we say to people to make them excited enough to want to try volcanic wines?
First of all, everything about wine, it's not just the drink that you have in the glass. It's the whole story about it. It's the people, it's the culture, it's the place. And we plan on organizing some trips in several regions like that, because that's when you get the feel and you get to understand the quality of the wine. Bring all these regions together, organize educational events, and have fun.
Okay, great. Thank you.
While we can't offer you any tastes from the grand tasting, we can offer you some sights. To see photos of the tasting and to read more about Sofia Purpura's work with the Greek Wine Bureau, visit our website, winemag.com/podcast. Time for a break, but when we get back, perspectives from 3 different regions of volcanic wine.
Just north of Napa, over the other side of the Mayacamas Range, you'll see Lake County.
Santorini is one of the most important wine regions of Greece.
Verona, northeast of Italy, in a small area called Soave Classico.
It's coming up on the Wine Enthusiast Podcast. Blue Apron Wine. When it comes to wine clubs, Blue Apron has the best wines at the best price. Sure, everyone says that. But in a head-to-head taste test of several wine clubs, Bloomberg recently wrote, Blue Apron is the clear winner, way more sophisticated in taste. Highlands Estate in Oregon, Mathiasen in Napa, Mount Beautiful in New Zealand, only the best vineyards and winemakers make the cut for a Blue Apron wine box, and every amazing wine is just $10 per bottle. Get $25 off your first shipment at blueapronwine.com/corkscrew. Terms and conditions apply. All orders are handled by Blue Apron Wine, Napa, California. Welcome back to the Wine Enthusiast Podcast. I'm Marina Vitage. Salt, grit, power. These are just 3 of the words you'll hear people use to describe wines grown on volcanic soil. At the recent Volcanic Wines International Conference in New York City, here's what some of the attendees had to say.
People have studied volcanoes at school. People kind of have this idea of this majestic, unknown beast. So there's a natural disaster potentially about to happen. And from a winemaking point of view, it makes wines that are really unique, something different out there on the shelf. And there's a real kind of minerality and underlying quality to them. It's not just about fruit, there's something else there, and that's what you're going to get in this room.
Volcanic wines are so terroir specific, and they're so expressive but so individual. I cannot get enough.
This minerality that we feel, whether you call it minerality or what you want to call it, it sometimes ends in a salty finish. And that's why we say salt of the earth is a perfect expression for this in many ways about what the volcanic wines are about.
These wines really have to struggle, and they really have to kind of evolve to be something truly unique, especially the wines from Santorini, because the landscape, it really is so lunar, and the fact that anything can survive there at all is astounding.
we think is something that is not only a good way to promote in a different way with wine, but is really a matter of different wines that are full of particular character in this way, very modern wines.
With all this education and study on the volcanic soil, it's something that for sure has a long-lasting living like the flavor of the volcanic wines.
We heard from
Ben Gordon,
Georgia Harrison,
Robert Gavesi,
Lindsay Sterlin,
Franco Zanovello,
Panayota Kalogeropoulou.
As John Szabo pointed out earlier in the show, you'll find volcanic wines from a variety of countries around the world. Lifestyle and entertaining editor Mike DeSimone poured a glass with experts from 3 of those countries: the United States, Italy, and Greece.
I'm Maria Brunn. I'm the executive director for the Lake County Winery Association up in Lake County, California.
When visitors come, describe the landscape to me. What will we see that might make us realize we're in a volcanic region?
Well, the very first thing you'll notice when you come over the mountains is the red dirt. Lake County is at about 1,400 feet elevation, and it is primarily all red volcanic soil. And then you'll see the mountains rising up around. Mount Konocti is the dormant volcano in the region. It's beautiful to hike up there, and you can look down and see all the vineyards and the lake, and it's just gorgeous.
So Lake County got its name because there is a lake there, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, Clear Lake. It's the oldest volcanic lake in the United States.
Really? Do you know what the age is? Do you have any idea?
It's about 2 million years old, so...
Wow, that's cool. So how many wineries do you have all together? How many belong to your organization?
So right now we have 36 winery members, and then there are about 180 vineyards in the region growing fruit, about 9,000, almost 10,000 acres planted. Andy Beckstoffer is, of course, a huge holder up there with his Cabernet program.
Cool. And so you brought over a glass of wine from Lake County for me to drink. Why don't you tell me what it is that we have here?
So in front of us right now we have the 2010 Hawk and Horse Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's from the Red Hills, Lake County AVA. I've been up on a vineyard tour. They have 2 separate vineyard sites. One's at a little lower elevation, and then they have one that's at 2,200 feet. They're on these gently rolling hills, and from up there, you know, you've got the red soil, you've got these beautiful little crystals that pop up. They're called Lake County diamonds. They're biodynamically farmed. They were the first in Lake County, I believe, from day one. They were organic and biodynamic, and they've worked really hard to just craft these beautiful Cabernets.
So let's give it a taste. It's a nice Cabernet. So Maria, what would you eat with that?
To be honest, I would pair this with a beautifully rare steak. It would also go really well with like charcuterie. You could sit and drink this, honestly, in the afternoon. It's so nicely made, so well balanced.
You know what? You got me there. So actually we have, because I think of charcuterie, that's kind of like Italian breakfast. Then our bacon cheeseburger is our lunch. And then we'll have that rare steak for dinner. So it sounds like we have our day all set. What do you think?
I think that sounds like a great plan.
All right. Terrific. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Alessio Inama. I'm part of the Inama Azienda Agricola. We are a family business. I'm part of the 3rd generation actually. My family has been cultivating in Soave Classico since the 60s. When my grandfather started the whole operation. And now as a brand, as bottle, Inama, we are working since 25 years.
Wow, so can you tell me what effect does the volcanic soil have on the grapes? Is there actually something that we can taste in the wine that we can attribute to the volcanic soil?
I would say that what is called minerality is very difficult to understand, especially in the grapes. What you get from the volcanic soil is simply a very nice and refreshing feeling that kind of cleans the palate and makes it your mouth ready for the next bite, for the next flavor. So it's just like that a wine made from volcanic soil is a very food-friendly wine.
So describe for me, what do your vineyards look like? And looking at it, what clues would I see that the soil was volcanic?
We are just in the heart of the Suave Classico, on a crew called Monte Foscarino, which is the tallest mountain in the Suave Classico. So from wherever you see Suave Classico, you will see the Monte Foscarino in the middle, in the heart, dominating all the rest. Most of our vineyards are on what is called the ash of the volcano. Some other areas have more like the proper basaltic lava. Some other areas have the what is called the tufo, white tufo. So even in the Suave Classico, there are different crews with different exposition and different volcanic soils. Our vineyards are normally between 40 and 45 years old, and southeast facing, which is fantastic. Actually, in the beginning, when my grandfather started to buy plots of land, the best plots were the ones facing west, because they were getting more ripened. But now with the climate change, we can see that on the west side, they are not the best ones. Actually, on the east side is much better. So we are very proud of our vineyards.
Cool. So you brought over a couple of glasses of wine for me. What do we have here?
Okay. We start with Vigneti di Foscarino, which is our classic Reserva. It's a selection of the oldest vines of the property. It's kind of what for us is the traditional Suave. We do skin contact maceration and then 6 months in used barriques. So what is the result is a wine with a lot of complexity and a lot of structure as well, with the classic notes of Garganega, with that kind of final aftertaste of almond. It closes very nice. It's a wine that we really enjoy every day, every time of the day.
That sounds great. And what's the other wine that we have here?
Yes, I brought something kind of special. This is the most celebrated wine of my estate, and it's almost all sold out in Italy. It's a crazy wine. It's a Sauvignon Blanc that in a blind tasting, nobody will recognize that it's a Sauvignon Blanc. This is because in a very strong personality, soil and terroir as Suave Classico, is the terroir that dominates the variety. And so when you taste this wine, you don't get any of the varietal aspects of the Sauvignon Blanc, but you get something completely different. You get the minerality and the floral notes of the Suave, but with something more going on that is coming from the Sauvignon Blanc. And in this particular wine, actually, what we do 6 months in heavy toasted barriques that gives this kind of fumé feeling. And this is an extreme wine. It's a unique wine. It's something that you really cannot get anywhere else in the world. And it can match with the most strong flavor dishes that you can have.
Okay, well, let's give that a try. So, cheers. I will agree with you. I will say I would not immediately have picked that out as being Sauvignon Blanc. If I did, I mean, it definitely, I think a lot of people are used to those, fruity, fresh, citrusy New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs especially. And this is a much more sophisticated taste than that. How much of this sophistication can we attribute to the wood, and how much do you think we can attribute to the volcanic soil that it's grown in?
I think 50-50, actually. It would be interesting to taste also the Sauvignon Blanc that we do only stainless steel. Then you will see the difference. The one in stainless steel is already something that you don't feel is a Sauvignon Blanc. I usually say that it's a Sauvignon Blanc for people who hate Sauvignon Blanc, because it tastes of something else. It's more tropical, it has this huge minerality caused by the volcanic soil. But then the sophistication, as you say, of the wood kind of combines and creates something even more different and more creative. So when we talk about terroir, I always like to think about the terroir as still as an expression of the human mind and the ambition of a man who wants to interpret this terroir and create something.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here, and hope to see you soon. Ciao.
Hello, I am Cristina Buttari. I am the Buttari ambassador for the wines of my family here in the United States. I'm the 5th generation of the family. That family started in 1879.
Tell me, what is so special about Santorini as a grape growing destination?
When I usually go to tastings and talk about Santorini, I feel very unique talking about the volcanic island. But here today, we're in a room where every wine is from a volcanic region. But this is what makes these wines unique. So there is a volcano, either active or non-active on the island, that has very important effects on the soil and then on the grapes grown on the island. Also, not only in terms of how they are grown, in terms of how old they are, in terms of the wines they produce. So Assyrtiko is the main white grape that is grown on Santorini, on the island, and that's almost 75% of the island is covered by Assyrtiko, the white grape. And you can have dry white wines from Assyrtiko, completely stainless steel wines, or you can have aged oaked wines, or you can have the famous Vinsanto from Santorini.
So when we taste the Assyrtiko from Butari, would you actually call it Santorini? Is that right?
Yes, we call it Butari Santorini, and it's very representative of the region and of the island and of the wines. The typical stainless steel, 100% Assyrtiko Santorini.
So, and I think we are going to taste that right now. So cheers.
Cheers. Llamas.
Llamas. Llamas. So that has, to me, I mean, that is the hallmark of what an Assyrtiko tastes like. It's crisp, it's clean, it has there's citrus, there's some lemon. It's making the back of my mouth. It's like making me pucker up a little bit. In terms of what I'm feeling, the mouthfeel and the taste, what of that could we attribute to the volcanic soil that the Assyrtiko grapes are grown in?
So what I've always found the Assyrtiko, and because in Greece you can find Assyrtiko in other regions, but it's never tastes like the Assyrtiko from Santorini because of the soil. And I learned some things today as well, like the minerals of the soil, the salinity that these minerals give to the wine. Santorini, I think, has even more salinity because it's in the middle of the Aegean, and it does get that mist that really helps to moist the grapes, the vines, but also gives it this salinity, the filling. High acidity. These vines struggle to, and they really go really deep in the ground to produce these grapes. So you have wines that have this very metallic mineral, and you see that struggle, I think, in the wine. As much as poetic as that might sound, I think that you can feel that in Santorini. That's what's fascinating about Santorini and most volcanic wines, I guess. I'll tell you a story a little bit about Santorini. So a lot of people think of Greece as white and blue, and indeed the houses are white, the sea is blue, the skies are blue, obviously, but Santorini is also black. Because you have the lava rocks, you have the beaches are black. And then when you see those wines, you see some labels, like our label is also black and white, and you see that strength, that boldness in these wines. And it's really true to the region, to the place.
It's a very picturesque and beautiful way to describe the volcanic soil of Santorini. So, Christina, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Wine Enthusiast podcast. Big thanks to Mike DeSimone for reporting from the first annual Volcanic Wines International Conference in New York City. You can read more about volcanic wines and the volcanic wine movement on our website, winemag.com/podcast. You can subscribe to the Wine Enthusiast podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please, write us a review. We love to hear what you think. We'd also love to stay in touch. Follow Wine Enthusiast Magazine on Facebook and Twitter, use the hashtag WEPodcast, and visit our website, winemag.com/podcast. The Wine Enthusiast podcast is produced by Shear & Shim, LLC. I'm Marina Vitage. See you next time.